Welcome, folks, to episode 13 of IndieSponge. As we speak, this weekend, Paul Schrader is back into production with the card counter. Kevin Jagernauth, things are getting back to some state of normal. With the state of normal, we're getting more projects, and surprisingly, this week has been fruitful as well, post-Cannes market. Kevin Jagernauth, how are you doing?
Good, man. How are you doing?
Very good. Off the top of our list, we have Pedro and Penelope Cruz that are getting back together, potentially. So Pedro was in screenwriting mode for a little while. Penning a new project. Of course, Le Madre, the mother, is back in this scenario. So yeah, let's talk about this new project called Parallel Moms, I think is the English translation.
Yeah. Pedro Almodovar has been quite busy in lockdown. Not only has he written this screenplay, but he's actually also written a few articles for a Spanish language newspaper just about his experience during the whole thing. But yeah, this is a new film, one that he seems eager to get into production. They're already talking about going to pre-production in October, and then shooting early next year, February, and then having it in cinemas by the end of 2021. And this is a story, again, that returns Almodovar to his themes of motherhood, and it's about two mothers who give birth on the same day. And then it tracks raising their children over the first years of their lives. So really, really rich territory for Almodovar, familiar territory. And again, he wants Penelope Cruz, who isn't officially signed on, but he has given her the script. Apparently, she likes it, and I can only imagine that barring something incredible happening, that they are going to work together, I think, on this.
All About My Mother, Volver, Broken Embraces, Pain and Glory, and we're not even including the older stuff. There's the chances of her not participating on this project are slim. I was thinking a lot about pairings of this kind. We don't see them as much in the last couple of decades. These director-actor pairings are quite odd, and yet in our yesteryear, in the 50s and 60s, even before that, it used to be the norm where these creative minds would get together. Yeah, it's going to be filmed in his backyard, of course, and so if they're aiming for a February shoot and a launch towards the end of the year, that means Pedro would technically be potentially hitting Venice of 2021.
Yeah, he could be, which might rub Thierry the wrong way, but it should be mentioned that Almodovar, this isn't the only project he has cooking. He is due to start shooting a short film with Tilda Swinton, I believe, may already be in production. It was after the news came out about this film. It was mentioned that in that same article from Variety that he's going into production, I think, this week or the week following. So maybe that's we could see Pedro really busy on the circuit next year. Maybe hit Cannes with his short film, maybe hit Venice with Parallel Mothers. And then right behind both of those, he's been working on his first English language feature based on the short story collection by Lucia Berlin, A Manual for Cleaning Women. Apparently that script isn't quite ready yet, but it is something he's working on. So he is busier than a lot of us right now, and during the lockdown, he's making the most of it.
That's awesome. On to our next topic. It's a Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind reunion with a DP that we're very much familiar with, and Kate Winslet, who's been attached to this project for a while. So The Untitled Lee Miller biopic will now be lensed by Elaine Kuras. And so, yeah, let's first talk about a rookie Helmer who's been in this business for God knows how long. She's worked in on film, in digital in digital as well. And I'm going to throw names like Rebecca Miller and Michael Gondry and Spike Lee. So, yeah, what are your first impressions of this filmmaker essentially moving firmly into the director's seat, and why do you think this is the project that sort of like got her thinking along this lines?
Yeah, this is a project that has been sort of brewing for a few years now, but I wouldn't call Ellen Kuras necessarily a rookie. I mean, she's been a long-time cinematographer, very celebrated as well. As you mentioned, she's worked with some really, really great directors, where she certainly, no doubt, picked up a lot of, sort of absorbed the process, no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
But she's been working over the last few years consistently in television. She's shot episodes of Catch 22, Ozark, Umbrella Academy, the upcoming Brave New World. So she's got more. She knows her way around a film set, no doubt. And for this particular project, we're talking about the story of a woman who is on the front lines of World War II, working as a war correspondent. But the interesting twist here is that this character of Lee Miller, she was actually a Vogue cover model who became a war correspondent. So I think it's a story that probably speaks profoundly to both Ellen Kuras and Kate Winslet. The strong female role, an inspiring female role. So I think that's where we're getting the interest here.
Yeah, I was thinking back to the sort of range that they could potentially cover. As you said, Winslet's been attached to this project since I think it's 2017, so she's fully versed in the, I imagine the portion of the life where this former model is sort of like feeling the impact of having seen atrocities. And we've seen there's been a lot of biopics on photographers, on war correspondents. So yeah, I'm curious to know whether there's going to be a structure that where we delve back into her past and then the present day. And I think Winslet is exceptionally good at. She's the type of actress that I want to say is at ease with roles that sort of like harken back to a certain era. And I wasn't able to remember specific roles where she does go off the wagon or into the deep, but she can definitely go there. And yeah, it's nice to see these two reteam, and I imagine there's a sense of validation for a character that is behind the lens. And I think for Kuras, she's going to be able to do something that is visually creative and yeah, tap into the psyche through perhaps different visual strategies.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of opportunity here for how to tell the story, how to shoot the story. And I think one of the interesting things about this character is when the war was over, Miller really suffered from depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, really had a hard time following the war because of the memories that she carried with her from what she saw. So again, as you said, Winslet really excels with these sort of complex characters that really have to go deep, that really have to show a lot of sides to who they are. And I think this is the kind of role. We should mention the script is coming from Liz Hanna, who wrote The Post. So again, I think we have three strong filmmakers here who have an opportunity to create a really well-rounded, really fascinating period piece.
Mm-hmm. Talking about shifting in time, there's a project that I normally would not be too interested in. Just it feels as if it could fall into corny or over sentimentality or something like that. But there's been a lot of curiosity around the project. So yeah, it's called Beautiful Ruins. And Niki, Caro, who we know from Whale Rider, but she's done a whole slew of different films, rather large budget productions over the last couple of years. And it's an Amblin project. So that means that there's going to be there's production money there. But what interests me about this project is that it taps into, a certain film history. So yeah, let's talk about, where Beautiful Ruins can go in terms of film history, but also those two different backdrops, and perhaps give us an idea of which hands this was, who was formally attached to the project.
So yeah, this is a film that has been brewing for a while. It's based on a best-selling book by, I want to say, Jess Walters. That name might be wrong, but it's a film that was actually over at Cross Creek for a while. And it's one that Todd Field had been attached to at one point. And it's an interesting story. It takes place against the backdrop of the making of the infamous Cleopatra with Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting one in that we have a story that's set against the backdrop of one of Hollywood's most contentious film productions in history, with two of its most combative personalities ever. So yeah, Todd Field was attached for a while. Sam Mendes circled at one point. And the film never got made, and I guess now it's landing at Amblin with Niki, Caro. But for me, the interest for this project is its Hollywood backdrop, is it that sort of 60s glamour, and watching the sort of melodrama of these characters play out against the larger melodrama of the making of that film.
Mm-hmm. So the film has the potential of being taking place much more in the present day, I believe, or in like the more recent era or decade. And it's a look back at a certain moment in this male protagonist's life, and so essentially, I think he runs a small hotel, no visitors, and he ends up meeting maybe Burton, but we know that Elizabeth Taylor was this major starlet who just happened to arrive on set. I mean, on this in this inn or this hotel. And then I was looking at Nico Caro, and which project might feel closer to this. And I was thinking a lot of the Zookeeper's Wife. And so that plays in one time period that's very time period specific. It's after, I think it's during World War II. And I feel that this filmmaker could certainly take a decent stab at this project. And I think all cinema geeks, there's something there for the fans of the book, but also people that are just in love with film history. So I guess the more interesting part is, how much of a role does Elizabeth Taylor play in the former portion of the project and of the day, and just like that cast, what it could look like. I think there's a lot of fun there, like the older man that's thinking back to his heyday and sort of.
There's a lot of places for this to go, and it should be mentioned that Niki Caro has often jumped from genre to genre. She made Whale
Mhm.
Rider, and then right after made North Country. She went from Zookeeper's Wife to Mulan. So I think it seems that she's interested in trying different things, and I think this is going to be another interesting new avenue for her to explore. So it'll be exciting to see what she does with it.
On to our next. So this week there was two major pickup announcements. Distributors landing some highly touted indie projects. One that we won't go into, but is definitely worth mentioning, is Spencer. The Neon folks they're super hot. They're on a great. They're I don't want to say spending spree, but they're certainly lassoing some of the bigger projects that are out there. The one that we will delve into is Focus Features that are sort of getting back into the game and are trying to make major moves in terms of acquisitions, but also their own productions. And so they lassoed a film that,
for someone like myself who has yet to catch up with Justin Chon's films, this one, at least from the cast alone, is easily going to bring his work to a much bigger audience. We have Alicia Vikander and Emery Cohen among the cast.
yeah,
And it's a story about a Korean adoptee who's raised in the U.S. and has to face his past when his family is facing deportation.
mm-hmm.
So a timely topic for sure, and one that, it's another personal project for Justin Chon, but maybe you can speak a little bit about how you see this film and the progression of his works.
Well, if we go back to just Gook in itself, it gave you a perspective that, those the LA events in '92, we tend to focus on very specific experiences, and Gook was essentially store owners protecting their investment, their livelihood, the everything that they've got. And so I think there's a lineage between these two projects. It's about, being part of the American experience and all the benefits and the negatives that are part of that. And certainly I think there's a lot of value in projects that sort of can give you a sense of that investment and that sacrifice. And I think because it comes from a personal place, that'll be relatable on some level. And again, like you said, that you mentioned, Vikander alone being part of this project says a lot about the interest that it's drawn from outside of what could be a smaller circle. So yeah, produced by an African-American producer who has a lot of clout and has been at Sundance, I think, every year almost for the past decade. And yeah, there's just a lot going for the project. And I think for Focus, they see a lot of value in a personal story like this. So they probably had a first look and said, hey, we can fit this into our programming. And I believe so. They have world rights for this project, so they're gonna give it a major play, most likely sometime next year when it's more they feel more confident or comfortable in having a traditional release, and also showcasing at a major film festival.
Mm-hmm. And it's great for Justin Chon, who now has a bigger platform for the kind of storytelling that he seems to value. Personal, deeply personal stories. So, and it's great for Focus to give him that space to do that. So it'll be really cool to see where this project lands and who it resonates with.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, he's the new kind of Cassavetes, where he takes on a couple of projects as an actor, and you have Minari that's coming out, and I think there's a certain lineage to that as well. So it's just nice to see him plunge into stories that he wants to see on screen, and take one for the team, and then go out and make some money, and be invested on the cinema scene, I should say. Moving along, Lee Daniels, who's sort of had moved away from feature filmmaking, but he's very much involved in the construction of the Empire universe. Well, he returned to feature filmmaking last year. It was actually a good significant portion was filmed in Montreal. And what's interesting about this project, it's that it was picked up by a studio that I thought was strategically unloading into the Netflixes and the Amazons, and sort of like now Paramount has got behind this project, and they see it as an acquisitions worthy project. So yeah, let's delve into the Billie Holiday biopic, and perhaps the value that a studio like Paramount sees in acquiring it. So yeah, so it was a project that was at the Cannes market last week. I believe one of the top tier items. So yeah, let's delve into that.
So yeah, we're talking about Billie Holiday versus the United States. I think that's the title.
Mm-hmm. United States versus Billie Holiday, I believe, is the
right. The United States versus Billie Holiday. And you're right. The big interesting part of this for me is Paramount, who we'll get to shortly, who have been sort of offloading quite a few films in the past few weeks to Netflix, have acquired this one. So it says to me that they see something that's potentially awards worthy with the film, and something that they feel has an appeal to a broad audience. And I mean, it's Billie Holiday, one of the biggest jazz legends ever. So that's certainly compelling. I think the interesting part of this story is it's going to cover a chapter in the singer's life when she was sort of hounded by the FBI for a number of reasons, and was also struggling with drug addiction at the same time. So it's going to be a portion of her career when she was doing very, very well, but was facing losing it all at the same time.
I'm thinking a lot about the Seberg biopic that came out last year. I'm also thinking about the Aretha Franklin trailer was put out this week. So we're seeing a lot of value in the star system, or at least iconic singers of a bygone era. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting how Paramount has shifted to investing in a project like this. Lee Daniels has been, I think Precious Firm was a major breakout for him in 2009. He went to the Cannes Film Festival at Paperboy in 2012. And then The Butler 2013 was certainly a challenging film to put out there. I think there was a lot of competition that year in that sort of like major budgeted indie projects. And it's I think it's going to be an interesting I think it'll be interesting to see where it posits itself, where they position the film. Are they going to wait until next year? So again, like the pathway to showcasing a film theatrically in 2020, it doesn't seem to be possible. So yeah, it's kind of cool to see them investing in a project that's already completed, and thinking ahead and thinking creatively in terms of how to get out this major voice out there.
Yeah, and I think Paramount's also reading the room a bit. With the success of Bohemian Rhapsody and Rocket Man and these sort of like music biopics at the moment. I
Hmm.
think it's them sort of seeing a trend and trying to trying to get their trying to get into the game a little bit. And it'll certainly be interesting to see how Andra Day, who's in the lead role of Billie Holiday, who's already a Grammy winning
Yeah.
performer, to see what her real big breakout role, like what that looks like and what kind of impact that will have as well. So you're right. We'll wait to see where, if Paramount decides to sort of maybe run against Respect this year, or maybe we'll see this at Cannes. Who knows?
So on the flip side of things, so Paramount, as they're acquiring something, they're unloading something, and so this week Netflix and Paramount agreed to a major deal, and it sort of like became an Aaron Sorokin type week because we have updates on two projects that he was invested in. So let's first talk about the trial of Chicago 7 and the implications of that major pickup on Netflix's part.
So yeah, Netflix made a deal with their buddies at Paramount, who they've been busy picking up all kinds of stuff from them over the past couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
For the trial of the Chicago 7, this is a project that's been knocking around Hollywood for years, and finally got made. So it's penned by Sorkin. He's directing as well, and the cast. You kind of wonder why Paramount didn't want to deal with the film. I mean, we have Sacha Baron Cohen, Eddie Redmayne, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Mark Rylance, Michael Keaton, William Hurt. I mean, it goes on and on. It's a stacked cast, and now it's falling into Netflix's basket. Um, and Netflix already has a very, very packed list of films waiting to come out, as we both know, and
Mm-hmm.
titles that we're both anticipating. So you have to wonder, did Paramount screen this and then they were like, this is not a contender for us, and decided to offload it? Or maybe it just doesn't fit into their business model at the moment, which seems to be leaning more towards, things like Top Gun and and Transformers and those kinds of things. But again, as we just spoke about, the flip side is they also acquired a Billie Holiday movie. So it's a curious move, but I mean, hey, it's going to be on the biggest platform in the world, for everyone to see. So, um, it, good news for Sorkin, certainly.
So the trial of Chicago 7 was essentially positioned as a September release. It's still technically, if Netflix were to release it, I feel as if they'll probably want to release it this year. So it's definitely a project that will be being familiar with in the 2020 run. This week, it was also announced that California gives out tax credits to all these productions, and finally, the LUCY and DESI project that Amazon has been attached to for a long time. I think it's since 2017. Well, and again, that's Aaron Sorokin pen project. Well, that is essentially going to be filming at some juncture, potentially this summer.
Yeah, I think everyone's kind of getting ready for things to be able to begin shooting, and this is a high-profile project that's been in the works for quite a few years now too. Another project that's sort of been kicking around, but I think what everyone wants to see is Cate Blanchett playing, TV legend Lucille Ball, and this is going to be a story about her marriage, her relationship to Desi Arnaz. They presented one face on television, and behind the scenes, it was a whole other thing. So, yeah, anything with Cate Blanchett, I think we both agree we're going to be there to check it out. but Kate Blanchett as one of the most recognizable icons of the television, of the golden age of television, is pretty exciting.
Mm-hmm. There's no director attached to it. I mean, maybe Sorkin will be the one that sort of like surfaces at the top. It's sort of odd to see a major project like this advance to a stage where you get a sense that it's going to go into production fairly soon. Do you think they already have a director top list, and they're just in the final stages of negotiation? Yeah.
I would assume Sorkin will do it. I mean, he's getting more getting more comfortable behind the camera. I don't see a scenario where he wouldn't. It's
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the writer's dream to write a script and then be able to sort of control how it turns out. So maybe there'll be someone else stepping in, but my presumption is that he'll do the job himself.
So this week, Charlie Kaufman, he's sort of like doing the press rounds because he's releasing his book Antkind, I believe, next week. And you actually found the little tidbit of information with regards to his next feature film. So I think us Charlie Kaufman fans should be ecstatic and pleased about the updates on I'm Thinking of Ending Things. Let's just delve into it. What was the little piece of news we found out?
So get out your red markers,
Okay.
and circle September 4th. That will be the day Charlie Kaufman's latest film will hit Netflix. And yeah, I mean, what else is there to say except we are always excited for whatever he has cooking up next, and this sounds like it's going to be another distinct vision from a director. He did a profile in the New York Times this week where he mentioned a few little tidbits about what we might expect. The Times called it a phantasmagorical, tightly wound thriller, which is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
While Kaufman, ever humble, called it odd, small, and complicated. So I think somewhere between those two poles is where this film is going to land. So I think we're looking at like maybe another sort of contained kind of story like Anomalisa, but one that's distinctly strange and distinctly his own. It's based on a book by Ian Reid, and it has two interesting leads in Jesse Plemons, who just seems to work with one great director after the next.
Absolutely right.
And the rising Jesse Buckley is the co-star as well.
So yeah, production on this occurred back in January of 2019. So that means they've had a lot of time to figure out a festival strategy. Seeing that this is a September 4th release, I would very much imagine him or the film attempting a run at both Telluride and the Venice Film Festivals. Do you think those are in the cards for this title?
I mean, we'll see. I mean, as we know, IndieWire reported about a month ago that Netflix was going to be skipping the festival circuit entirely this year. Whether or not that remains their strategy as Venice and Telluride and TIFF try and get some kind of festivals launched, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I agree with you. I actually think Telluride is probably a really, really good fit for Kaufman and this film. But whether Netflix wants to strategize a festival setting with the premiere of the film, or just do their own thing, we'll see. We have to remember they own cinemas in New York and LA, so it's very possible that they could just invite press in both cities maybe a week before to screen the film, and that'll be that. So in any case, festival or not, we'll all be watching the film in September.
Well, I don't think I've been covering the film scene for such a long time. I don't think I've ever seen such a highly anticipated film play in the first week weekend of September. Usually that's there's like a dead zone right there, specifically for film titles that come out in late August. And I was thinking, as I was reading up on, he gave a couple of interviews, a sprinkling of interviews. And he was updating us on why Frank or Francis didn't occur. And then like a project that was around the $10 million budget range. And I feel that his type of cinema he was just born, like not born in the wrong era, but the type of films that he would normally he should have been making his own films every 3-4 years. And now it feels as if his projects fall in a range where those mini majors aren't comfortable in backing the type of indie size films that he wants to make. So I was thinking this week, I'm like, oh, poor guys, like he would have been well suited for the 90s and the early noughts and his 2008 film Senadoche, New York, it feels as if that was like, there's like this line in the sand where those type of films I'll call them, adult films are just not being made anymore. So it was nice to see how certain filmmakers that are no longer afforded that latitude or those budgets are being backed by Netflix.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a really good observation. I feel like as Kaufman's career was sort of ascending, those mini majors, that sort of sweet spot of $10 to $30 million films, that whole space started evaporating. And I mean, in fairness, he conjures projects that aren't the easiest sell either. So he's always had that challenge of trying to tell his own stories that are strange and surreal and with characters that aren't always pleasant in a space that increasingly just didn't have room for it.
So hence him penning a book like Ankind. So I'm looking forward to digging into that. I'll probably purchase it and then leave it on your porch with a COVID-friendly exchange or something.
Thanks very much, man. I'm looking forward to it as well.
Great. So yeah, a lot to look forward to in the fall, and specifically, this is a great way to begin the month of September. I'm Eric Lavallée. I'm editor-in-chief and site owner for IONCINEMA.com, and this is
Kevin Jagernauth, contributing writer for the playlist.
And together we are IndieSponge.